Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Kesubos Kuf Ches. We are holding on Kuf Zayin Amud Beis at the Mishnah, which is 4 lines from the bottom of the Amud. So we began the parak with a small introduction. There were 2 Dayane Gzeros, one was Chanan, one was Admoin. We have 2 halachis in the name of Chanan and 7 in the name of Admoin. We have already discussed halacha number 1 in the name of Chanan. Here comes halacha number 2. Says the Mishnah, Mi shehalach limdina sayam. This husband left town. He's on a journey. It's been a while, and his wife has run out of funds. V'amad echad upirneses ishtay. This fellow graciously steps forward and provides for this fellow's wife's expenses. Question: is it considered a loan to the husband or not? You see, had he have said something, look, I'm lending it to you, and of course I expect to be repaid. Or if she would have said, likewise, look, I'm borrowing this money from you towards my expenses. Of course, in any of these situations, when husband finally returns, of course, he must repay this loan. Problem is, nobody said anything. Everybody assumed. He just offered, he gave, and he never said that it's an actual loan. This fellow left town. This fellow volunteered, paid this wife's expenses. What happens when husband returns? According to Chanan, he lost his money. He has no way to recoup this generosity from husband because it's not legally considered a loan. Tosfos explains, well, very nice, you satisfied my obligations, you paid up my debt, so to speak. It's very nice. It's like, Tosfos says, a mashal like mavriach ari minichse chaver. A person who notices a lion approaching his fellow's field, his fellow's property, and he goes and chases away the lion. You've taken away something which could harm me. You've removed a debt, a load off my shoulders. But I haven't actually received anything directly from you. And therefore I don't owe you anything. This is the husband speaking. That's Shitas Chanan. Mavriach ari menichse chaveroi. But this shaila, this case, was disputed by the other Chachamim. Nechlaku alav b'nei Kehanim Gedolim, the descendants of the Kehanim Gedolim. They had a group of Chachamim, and they were chaylik. They disputed this halacha. V'amru, they maintained, sure, this fellow is fully entitled to full repayment. Yeshava kamahoitze v'yital. He simply will make a shavua. This is how much I spent, and he'll recoup that full amount from the husband, because according to them, it's as though I loaned the husband money. I took care of his debt. I satisfied his obligations. It's as though I gave you money. Let me have it back. Concludes the Mishnah. Omar Rabbi Yehuda ben Harkinas, he maintained kidivreihem. I agree with the Chachamim, with the Bnei HaKahanim Gedolim. This stranger is fully entitled to full repayment. Omar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, just the opposite. Yofa Omar Chanan, I agree with Chanan. His opinion seems to me more probable. This fellow lost his money. Heiniach ma'osav al keren hatzvi. It's as though he placed his money on top of the deer's horns. Go find it. Go chase the deer and get your money back. You fail to stipulate, you fail to express yourself clearly that this in fact is being issued as a loan meant to be repaid. It's money laid out without any recourse. Tanan Hasan, we have a Mishnah in the Durham which says as follows: Hamudur hanoa mechaveri. Let's say Reuben and Shimon, they got into some sort of disagreement. They made a neder against each other. I can't have any benefit from you, and likewise the other fellow can't have any benefit from me. So Reuben and Shimon detached, unlinked. They can't enjoy each other's benefits. Shekel loyes shikli. Here comes a chiddush. Reuven can actually offer to pay the machzas hashekel, the annual due paid to the Beis Hamikdash, on behalf of Shimon. Upareya loyes choyvay. Likewise, Reuven can just pay up Shimon's debts. Likewise, he can return to him a lost item. If they live in a place where it was customary for the fellow who returns an item to get some sort of, payment for his troubles. Suppose it was, compensation for lost income at that time. In any case, Reuben was due some sort of payment. He can't take that payment. He can't derive any hana'ah from Shimon, and likewise he can't forego that payment, because in effect it will be considered as though he had granted Shimon a gift. So what happens to that fee, to that payment? It goes to the tzedakah pushka. Tipoy lahana'ah lehegdish, it goes to the hegdish, to the Beis Hamikdash. End of Mishnah. Let's try to analyze this Mishnah. How could this be allowed? Bishloima shoykel loyes shikli. I understand. I fully comprehend how Reuven can pay the machzis hashekel on behalf of Shimon. You know what? I'm not actually giving him anything. Mitzvah ka'avid. He's simply doing a mitzvah. Because, as Rashi explains, after all, Shimon will have a part in the communal karbanos, even if in actuality he never sent in, he never submitted his own machzis hashekel. This not, as we learned in the Mishnah, termin ala avad. So after they accumulated all their coins in the Beis Hamikdash, they would take a container, 3 containers actually, and 3 times a year they would scoop out what's called the Trumas Halishka, which we discussed the other day, which was meant to purchase karbanos tzibur. And when they did that truma, you know what they had in mind? Everything. Whether the money arrived, whether it didn't arrive, whether it will never arrive. All Klal Yisrael are included. We grant them a part in the karbanos tzibur. So, at the end of the day, even if you haven't really contributed, you have a chelik. So Shimon, the beneficiary in this case, is not really benefiting from Reuven's contribution, because he would have had a chelik in the karbanos tzibur regardless of whether or not he contributed. So Reuven, when he gives on his behalf, isn't really giving him anything. Termin ala avad, when they do the truma, it's on account of everything, even coins that were lost along the way to Yerushalayim, bala gavoy, coins which were collected and are still en route, haven't yet arrived. Vala asili gavoy, coins which will perhaps in the future be collected, and even if it will never happen. Trumas halishka was done on their behalf. That explains why Reuven may even add a coin to Shimon's credit, because it's just a mitzvah that Reuven is doing. But Shimon isn't really getting anything from that. Second halacha, hashavas aveda. U'machsheli avedasai. How could Reuven return a lost item? There as well, nami. Mitzvah ka'avid, after all. It's Shimon's personal item. I'm not giving him anything. It's not like, the Rishonim point out, it's not like tzedakah. Why can't I give tzedakah on his behalf? Because I'm spending money, which I'm giving to him. Here, the item belongs to him. It's his lost animal. The fact that I'm troubling myself to return it to him, okay, that's a mitzvah for me. So therefore it's mutter. So I'm involved in a mitzvah. I'm not really giving him anything of mine. Here comes the big question. What was the third item on the list? I can actually repay his debt. How can I do that? I'm laying out money on his behalf, which is seemingly directly benefiting him. Hakam mishtar means he's benefiting, he's having he's having full benefit from it. Here's the answer. And that's how it ties in very well to our mission, to our sugya. You know who's speaking in this Mishnah? You know whose opinion is reflective in this Mishnah? Chanan, the Amar Ibeides Ma'isav, this fellow in our story, who stepped forward and was mefaris this fellow's wife. Can he recoup those monies? According to Chanan, Ibeides Ma'isav, he lost. He gave it away. Clearly, according to Chanan, when you go ahead and you pay a person's debt, you satisfy his obligations, you haven't given him anything. It's very nice of you. It's very noble. As we explained before, in the name of Tosfos, it's like Mavriach Ari, Menichse Chaver. It's as though you chased away an animal coming to attack his assets. You prevented a loss. You removed a load from his shoulders. But you haven't really given him anything. Here as well. You can't have enough from me, but I can pay off your debt because I haven't really given you anything. And the fact that you have full benefit, that's a goyim. It's just a subsequent result. It's a grama. There's no direct gifting here. That's Chanan's opinion. That's Rav Aisha's opinion. We're going with Chanan. V'Rava Amar, I have another opinion. Another way to explain this halacha. How could a mudar hana'a mechaveroi pay off the other fellow's debt? Afilu temer rabbanon. You know what? Let's not limit ourselves to Chanan. Even the Rabbanon, the opposing shita, would agree it would be mutter in this case. You know why? We're speaking about a very unique arrangement. Shalava, when this fellow borrowed this money, almanah shaloi lefroya, it was done on condition that he doesn't have to repay. Interesting, unique arrangement that he had with his creditor. I'm borrowing with no deadline. I can choose to repay or not to repay. In which case, when I repay that debt, when I satisfy that choiv, I haven't really given him anything, because at the end of the day, he didn't even really have to repay his debt. So we have two ways to explain. Either it's Rav Aisha working with Chanan, or it's Rava working with the Rabbanan because of this unique arrangement which did not obligate any repayment. Bishleim Rava, I understand why Rava Loi Amak Rav Aisha didn't pick the first pshat. The Maikim Lak Rabbanan, he chose the broader path. I want to go with the Chachamim rather than limit myself to Chanan's view. El Rav Aisha, my time Lamak Rava. But why didn't Rav Aisha, who chose Chanan as a way to explain the Mishnah, not opt for Rava's pshat, which worked even with the Rabbanan? Amalach Rav Aisha, I don't agree with that approach, because once we speak Rabbanan, now Rabbanan hold that repayment of the other person's debt is tantamount to having given him something directly. It says, "Oh, I stepped into your shoes, I took over your position, I gave you something because I assumed your responsibility." That's their opinion, right? It's not just chasing away an animal. No, I took over your responsibility, I paid your obligations, I gave you something. According to the Rabbanan, this will not work, because even if you suppose that the borrower, the loiva, had arranged with his creditor that he can choose or not to choose to pay back, after all, it's embarrassing for him. It's pretty shameful for him not to pay back that loan. So when I step in and I take up his position and I pay his loan, I am sparing him of that great shame. So I'm actually giving him something. Nihida no Leslie. So again, Rav Aisha, why didn't he go with the Rava? Amalach Rav Aisha will tell you like this. Nihida no Leslie. True, he doesn't have to pay, but there's more than just finances involved. Hano he doesn't have, meaning direct financial benefit he doesn't have, because after all, he didn't have to repay the loan. But Kesubos Leslie, don't you think that he's embarrassed from his creditor if he just wiggles away and doesn't pay that debt? Hosanami isli hano. So, in a case where I step in and pay that loan for him, he does have some sort of benefit. He does have hano. Ba'yano the michsef minei, because after all, I'm sparing him that shame and embarrassment. That being the case, I wouldn't be allowed to step in for him. I wouldn't be allowed to repay his debt, and therefore, let's not take this route. Rather, it's Shitas Chanan who's speaking in this Mishnah. Chanan holds, he has a different perspective. When I pay this fellow's debt, I'm totally not taking his place. I'm just chasing away a potential, animal, so to speak, potential harm. I'm removing from your life. I'm taking off a load. I'm alleviating your situation, but that's not considered a direct benefit, and therefore it's mutter. Okay, now we're proceeding to Admon. He had 7 halachas, the first 2 of which we're going to learn today. Admon Omer Shiva. Admon presented 7 chidushim. Number 1. Many of us are very familiar with this upcoming halacha. We had it many times in the Masechta. Misha meis v'niach bonim u'banos. His fellow passes away, leaves behind sons and daughters. So what happens to allocating the assets? Bizman shenachasim Reuben, when you have enough assets to go around. Habanim Yershim, the sons are Yerish min haTorah. Vabanos nizoines, and girls get nizoines as long as they're unmarried and still young. That's part of the Tanai Kesubos. Let's say there isn't enough to go around, and Rashi brings the Gemara, isn't enough to feed everybody for 12 months, so things are tight. Who gets priority, boys or girls? Says the Mishnah, in the name of Admoin, listen to this. Girls get mezainis, and boys have to collect for themselves. They're more capable of doing so. They have to fend for themselves. Sorry, that's Shitas Tanakama. Admoin didn't like this. Admoin Omer, Bishvil Shani Zocher Ifsadi, just because I'm a boy, I'm at a disadvantage? No, split it equally. In fact, I agree with Admoin. Royani, as the Admoin, Admoin's opinion rings with me. I agree with that Shita. My Kamar, what did Admoin mean? Bishvil Shani Zocher, which almost sounds like, really, I'm a Zocher and I should be ahead of the game, and you're making me lose? What do you mean to say? Amar Abaye, Hachi Kamar, Bishvil Shani Zocher. Look, I'm a boy. V'roi la'asek b'Torah, and I'm able to learn Torah. That's my mission, and really, I should be, considered in higher regard. And that's why you're making me lose Hifsante, and still you're making me lose. Amali Rabbis, Rabbi responds to Abaye's pshat. What does Torah have to do with Yerusha? Man da'asek b'Torah hu diyaris. A person who learns Torah, he gets Yerusha. Man da'lo yasek b'Torah liyaris. We're speaking about Yerusha d'oraisa here. You learn Torah, you're a Yerush. You don't learn Torah, you don't inherit. Well, what do you mean? Why is it hinging on that? Elam Arava, he meant like this. Hachikama. Mishvil shani zocher. V'ro'ig lirash b'nechasim ruben, despite the fact that I'm a zocher, which enables me to be a true, proper heir, a Yerush, when there are enough assets to go around. So I have a Yerush title. Doesn't make sense that when there are few assets to go around, I'm at a disadvantage. I'm worse off than the girl. How did I go from being above, from being first priority to being second priority? And therefore, it's an unfair arrangement. Let them all split it equally. Continues the Mishnah with halacha number 2 from Admon. Reuben approaches Shimon. Look, I have by you 10 containers, 10 pitchers, barrels of oil. Right? Shimon responds, okay, he admitted to the barrels. Yeah, barrels, containers, sure. It's sitting in my basement, but they're empty. No oil in them. Admon maintains, this is the classic moide b'miktsas. Hoyel v'hoide b'miktsas atana yishava, since he admitted to part of the claim. That's your classic din of moide b'miktsas atana, when Reuben claims against Shimon, and Shimon responds with a partial admission. This is the halach in the Torah, moide b'miktsas, which triggers a shavua. The claimant, Shimon, must swear to verify his claim. If something's fishy, something's out of order, you have to verify your claim with a shavua. Here as well, I asked you for containers with content. You admitted to the containers without content. That's half my claim. Swear. They disagree. Ein hahida miktsas miminatana. No, this admission, as per the empty containers, is not considered a partial admission as per my claim. And the Gemara will explain why. Amar Rabbi Gamliel, Royani Esderei Admoin. Actually, I side with Admoin. It is considered moide b'miktsas. So, bottom line, I asked him for containers with content. He admitted to the container. What do the Chachamim say? He's potter. Shmami, no, we can derive from the Chachamim that l'Rabbanan, according to Shittas Chachamim, ta no yichitin v'sohirin. Suppose Reuben presents Shimon with a claim as follows: you owe me wheat and barley, 2 different types of produce. And Shimon turns around and agrees with regarding the Sa'ir. Sure, barley, yes, but wheat, no. Potter. That's not considered a partial admission, because wheat, barley, 2 different varieties, 2 different things, 2 independent claims. Moide b'miktsas refers to a partial admission, an admission regarding a partial claim. I asked you for $100, you admitted to $50. But when I asked for chitin and so'irim, those two things are unconnected, unrelated to each other. When you respond with an admission regarding the so'irim, that's not called moed b'miktsas, just as we see in our Mishnah. Reuben asked for the containers and the oil within them, two different things. Shimon acknowledges the containers. That's not called moed b'miktsas atana, because containers he totally admitted, and oil he totally denied. We don't bundle together the container with the content and say, well, it was one big claim and partially admitted. You don't say that. You separate containers from content. Is that so? It's not considered moed b'miktsas. It does not trigger a shvua. If so, we have a kasha. Leimatavet yufted Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. We have a kasha on this shita. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Ta'anai chitin v'sohirim. He laid a claim about chitim and so'irim. V'oidoloi be'echad mehen. And he was moida regarding one type. Chayav. That is considered admitting to part of the claim. Amar Vidam Rav. Actually, no. Typically, if I have a taina of chitin and so'irim and you admit to chitim, one of the two types, it is considered moed b'miktsas. In our Mishnah, we're speaking betoya nemida. He never asked for containers. He just said, look, I deposited, in your hands my oil. I was mafkid shemen, without containers, right? But when he spoke about the kadesh shemen, right, the Mishnah says, "Hatoynes chaver kadesh shemen." It was just in terms of quantity. It's like today they say, a barrel of oil is worth $70. Nobody's selling barrels of oil. It's just became like a quantity, a set measure. So I have in your possession 10, barrel fills of oil, 10 measures, 10 amounts. It's a quantity. In which case, when he denied the whole thing, no oil, it's not moed b'miktsas. I asked you for oil, you denied it. It's kaifer akol, it's a full denial. But he asked him for a specific measure, 10 container fills of oil, but no containers. So denying the oil is a full denial. If that's the case, my tamid admoin. Why would admoin consider this a moed b'miktsas? It's a full total denial. He asked him for oil, which he denied. Elam Rava rather like this. There was a semantics discussion between admoin and the chachamim. A language question. The Kuli Am all agree, meaning admoin and the chachamim would be fully agreeable. Heicha da amarle Maloi asora kadeshem and yeshli bebarcha. Let's say he actually tells him, I'm not speaking about containers. I have maloi asora kadeshem, 10 kadeshem fill, meaning an amount of oil equal, an amount which could fill, theoretically could fill 10 containers of oil. Yeshli bebarcha, I have in your pit near the press. Look, there are 10 gallons, so to speak, of oil in there. In this case, of course, there's no reference to containers. Shemen kantoinli. He's asking him for the oil. Kan kanim le kantoinli. He's not asking him for barrels, for containers. And in this case, if he comes back and says, sure, I owe you barrels, I owe you containers, that's not considered a moed b'miktsas. That's a total, flat-out denial. I never asked you for containers. I asked you for oil, which you denied. This case is clear. Likewise, on the other side of the spectrum, asora kadesh shemen maleim. You're holding 10 full barrels of oil. Kadesh shemen maleim. Full barrels are generally, referring to oil inside barrels. So in this case, it's clear that shemen vikan kanim katoinli. He's asking for content and containers. In which case, if he admits to one over the other, it's called the moed b'miktsas. When do we have the discussion now? When do we have the machlekes? Regarding a specific nusach, which is tricky, which has to be analyzed. Suppose Reuben approaches him and says, Asora kadesh shemen yeshli eslacha. You're holding 10 kadei shemen of mine. Now that's the question. What do you mean? Admin maintains, well, asore kadei shemen, that includes the kadim, the containers, oil and containers. Yesh b'loshen hazeh loshen kankanim. This type of terminology is a reference to content and also to containers. And once he admits to one, whichever one, whether I admit it to the container or to the content, it's called a moedim b'miktzas. I asked you for two things, and you admitted to one. V'rabbanon savri ein b'loshen hazeh loshen kankanim. They disagree. Asar kadishem, and it just means, a certain measure of oil. There's no reference to actual containers, in which case, I'm just asking you for the oil, which you are denying. It's a kaifer hakoil, full denial, no shavua. So according to this approach in the Gemara, theoretically, when Reuben asks him for two things, chitim v'sa'irim, or barrels with oil, and Shimon agrees to one, he admits, I owe you, sa'irim, or I owe you the oil and not the container. That is called the moedim b'miktzas, because we lump together both parts of the claim. It's one comprehensive claim. You owe me two things. And when he responds with an admission on one, that's called the moedim b'miktzas. In our Mishnah, it's a side point. It's a question of semantics. When I use this type of terminology, asar kadeshem, how do we treat it? Is it as though I'm claiming two things, container and content, in which case an admission on content is called a moedim b'miktzas, or perhaps the claim is not considered a claim on container, just on content? That's the catalyst of the machlokes between Admin and the Rabban. Says the Gemara, but now we're going to have a kasha on the other sheet. Remember, before we referenced Shitas Rav Nachman and Shmuel, a taina of chitin v'sa'irim which triggers a haidah on just sa'irim, that's called a moedim b'miktzas. But there's another shita, and the manner in which we just explained the Mishnah would be a direct collision to the other shita. Why? Because we're working with the notion that a taina on chitin v'sa'irim, which generates a haidah on just one of the two things, is considered moedim b'miktzas. The question is whether the claim in our Mishnah happens to correspond to such a type of claim. Why do Chachamim not consider this a moedim b'miktzas? Because according to them, this type of, this specific terminology is not considered to be referring to the kankanim, the containers, in which case, when this fellow admits the containers, it's not an admission. So there's a side technical reason to preempt the halacha of moedim b'miktzas, right? But suppose suppose he would be clearly referring to containers as well. You owe me containers and content. And the fellow responds by admitting to containers. So even though I asked him for two things, it's like chitim v'sa'irim, and you responded with one, chayav. He would be chayav a shvua. Leima tiyavet yufta de Rav Chia bar Abba. It's a kasha on this shita. Dam Rav Chia bar Abba. Ta'anai chitim v'sa'irim. According to him, when a person lays a claim of chitim and sa'irim against his friend, and he responds with one pater, that's not called the moedim b'miktzas. You asked him for two separate things, unconnected, unrelated, two independent claims, one of which was admitted to and one which was denied on. And our Mishnah seems to indicate otherwise. That this formula would generate a shvua. Amar of Simi bar Ashi, you're right. But barrels filled with oil are totally different than chitim v'sa'irim, which are two separate things. Here it's one inherent entity. Nasa k'misha ta'ana rimon b'kli pasar. When I ask for a container full with oil, it says, he asked him for a pomegranate with its skin. It's one inseparable entity. It's one taina. It's one thing. And a haidah on part of that is called a moedim b'miktzas. And it's totally different than asking him for chitim and for sa'irim. It's two separate things, unconnected. Maskef Ravina, how could you compare to a remind? Remind like klipase, like minter, you can't hold on to a pomegranate without its peel, it's just going to spoil on you. So over there it's one inseparable entity, but shemen minter, like kankanim, you can have, oil, you can hold on to oil without containers. You can have a pit, a boiler full of oil, and it'll stay fresh. There's no issue there. So how could you say that the kankanim with the shemen are one entity? Ella hachab ma'askina, says the Gemara. Apparently, we're speaking about a different type of case, meaning according to this view, this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda bar Abba, inevitably we're going to have to revise the pshat in the Mishnah. He came back with a partial admission on part of the containers themselves. Again, we're going with the opinion now that asking you for chitim v'sa'erim, which generates a hoidah on just chitim or just sa'erim, is not called a moedah mitzvahs. Likewise, by kankanim v'shemen, coming back and being moedah on one of the two, it's not called hoidah b'mitzvahs. Rather, we're speaking that he was moedah on part of one. I asked you for containers and content, and you came back and offered me half of the containers. So that's a straight out moedah b'mitzvahs. And that's what the Mishnah is speaking about. Ella, Ha'cha was speaking to Amalei. Reuben approaches Shimon and says, Asara, Kadei Shemen Yesh Le'etzlacha. You owe me back 10 barrels of wine. V'Amalei idach, and Shimon responds, number one, Shemen lo yehoyu dvarim oilim. Oil, never seen your oil. Total flat out denial. Regarding the containers, well, you're going a bit too far. Kankanam nami chamish islacha. Regarding containers, 5 I owe you. V'chamish leslacha, but not the other 5. So now it's much better, because I actually admitted to part of the kankanim. That's a real moedah mitzvahs. You asked me for 10, I admitted to 5. Admon oimers. Now we have the machlekes. Admon says, well, when I asked you for asora kadei shemen, like the Gemara said before, it's a reference to the shemen and the kadim. I asked you for both, containers and content. Yesh b'loshen hazeh loshen kankanim. It's a reference to the kankanim as well. I asked you back for 10 containers. You're agreeing to 5. That's moedah mitzvahs. Because you have a shvua on the kankanim, we apply the concept called gilgul shvua. It drags along, it rolls along the oil as well. I make you swear on the oil as well. Even though on the oil there was no moedah mitzvahs, it was a flat out denial. Which doesn't typically generate a shvua, but we apply the concept called gilgul shvua. Once you're going at it, include everything. But Rabbanan disagree regarding the entire chiyuv shvua. Like we said before, they hold ein b'loshen hazeh loshen kankana. When I present you with a kadei shemen claim, well, kadei shemen is a reference to shemen. It's just a measure, a quantity, such and such, amount of oil. But it isn't necessarily a reference to the actual container, and therefore, when I responded with a partial acknowledgement on the container, that's not called moedah b'mitzvahs. You asked me for oil, I gave you back containers. Mashatanoi, the item that he claimed, which was the oil, there was no admission on that. And the item that he admitted about, the containers, was never part of his claim, in which case there's no chiyuv shvua. So bottom line is like this. We have a case where a person approaches his friend with a taina, give me back the containers with oil, asora kadishem. How do we deal with this? So according to the Chachamim, there was no chiyuv shvua. According to Admon, there is. We have 2 ways to explain the machlekes, based on a previously discussed, notion, which is the shaila of chitim l'sa'orin v'hoida b'sa'orin. I asked you for 2 types, and you responded with 1. If you say that's considered a mitzvah sataina, you're a chayev shvua. So in our sugya, the Chachamim will hold, well, saying, the lashon asora kadei shemen, I have by you 10 containers of oil, and that's a reference only to the shemen, not to the kankanim. In which case, I asked you for the oil, you responded with containers. That's not a moedah mitzvahs. That's okay for a koil. Whereas according to Admon, when I asked you for asora kadei shemen, it was a double reference there. It's like asking you for chitim v'sa'erin. I asked you for the container and the content. In which case, when you come back with an admission on the containers, that is called a moedah mitzvahs. It's like asking you for chitim v'sa'erin and coming back and agreeing to sa'er, and therefore you're chayev shvua. According to approach number 2 in the Gemara, that when I ask you for chitim v'sa'erin and you respond with a hidah and sa'er, and you are potter, because you don't connect the claim on the chitim to the claim on sa'erim So it's not considered a partial admission on the claim. The chitim, you totally denied, and the se'erim, you totally admitted to. There was no moed b'miktzas. So according to that opinion, how are we going to learn the Gemara? The answers was speaking that he asked him for asara kadesh shemen, and he acknowledged 5 containers. No oil, but 5 containers. According to Chachamim, the Loshen asara kadesh shemen is not a reference to kankanim, to containers. It's merely speaking about oil. Oil he totally denied, and kankanim, well, I didn't ask you for kankanim, so that's not considered a moed b'miktzas. Whereas according to Admoin, kankanim are included in his claim. I asked you for kankanim, I asked you for shemen. And since he responded with a partial acknowledgement on the kankanim, right? I was moeded to 5 kankanim. So you have a moed b'miktzas on the kankanim, and that drags along the shvua on the shemen as well. Hence, Admoin's opinion that a shvua is applied in this case. Okay, so we had a total of 3 missions. We started with a case of a fellow generously offering parnasa to this, no-show husband. According to Chanan, money is down the drain. According to Bnei Kahanim Gedolim, he has a right to recoup his losses. Taisus explains, because according to Chanan, it's as though I just chased away a wild animal. I did you a nice thing. I spared you the trouble. I unloaded a big load. I'd satisfied your debt, but I haven't actually given you anything. The other Shita disagrees. I stepped into your shoes. I assumed your responsibilities. It is considered as though I gave you something. We had a Mishnah in the Durham that a mudar hanoah can actually repay the other fellow's loan. Why? We have 2 ways to explain. Either we're going with chanan, money given to satisfy a person's loan is not considered direct payment to the recipient, to the Baal Chayv, in which case there's no issue of neder. According to Rava, we're going with Shitas Chachamim. Typically, it is tantamount to having given you something. So repaying your loan is considered like a gift to you, but we're speaking that the fellow never had a chiv to repay his loan. He had arranged with the malveh that he will or not repay his own loan, in which case paying it for him is not considered really benefiting him. Okay, let's proceed to the next Mishnah. This fellow passed away, left behind nechasa mu'atin. According to Tanakama, the Banis get it, the Banim have to collect for themselves. Admin says, just because I'm a boy, I lose out. And Rabbi Gamliel seems to take on his opinion, and we concluded with the machlokes regarding moed b'miktzas. Hatzlach Rabbi to you, and all the best.